Let's kick off with business and immigration law updates. This is a proud presentation of the Khurana Law Firm in Rockville, Maryland. Here, the Chief Attorney and Counselor at Law is the well-known attorney Ramesh Khurana. The moderator of this segment is Attorney Kenneth Haber. On this set, Attorney Haber questions Attorney Khurana on L-1 visas and its importance. Let's have a closer look.
Welcome to the Capitol Forum. I'm your moderator today, Kenneth Haber. I'm a former Assistant United States Attorney and a former Senior Attorney in the Office of Inspector General. With me today is Ramesh Khurana, a well-known, celebrated immigration attorney who has clients across the country and literally across the world. He's here to discuss today with us the L-1 visa and its significance. Welcome, Ramesh.
Thank you very much, Ken, and I appreciate your kind words as part of my introduction. I don't know whether I deserve them or not, but I really appreciate from the bottom of my heart.
Well, I really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. You're an excellent attorney and you do excellent work, and that's well known.
Thank you again.
Can you tell us what the L-1 visa is?
I'll be happy to do that, Ken. L-1 visa is about transferring an employee from one company's office to the other company's office. I will support it with an example. It becomes much more easier for the audience. Let us say that U.S. parent company is in the United States and it has got its Indian subsidiary in London. And person wants to move from London office of the subsidiary company to the parent company's office here in the United States. So that person doesn't have to go through the rigorous requirement of H-1B visa petition. That person can be transferred on L-1 visa, just a transfer from subsidiary, from parent or an affiliate to the parent company or vice versa. So that is called L-1 visa.
Can you briefly explain the benefits of this visa?
Oh yes, there are several benefits of L-1 visa. First of all, it's not subject to the regulation and strict requirements of H-1B petitions. Under H-1B petitions, you have to pay the wages which are basically stipulated by the Labor Department of the United States. And we talked about the benching concept. You cannot make somebody sit without any active work, like you cannot put any person in a non-productive status. But in L-1 status, I think you could take some liberty and you could be little bit liberal. And I would say that in terms of wages, you don't have to pay the same amount of wages as these are provided for by the Labor Department. Of course, if it is a bona fide case, let us say that CFO is coming from India, which is a subsidiary company, to work in the United States, he is holding such a high position, I am pretty sure he is going to be getting paid even more than the wages which are provided for by the US Department of Labor. But benefits in terms of flexibility, how do you treat your employees, there is a lot of flexibility.
It sounds to me, though, with my background as a former Assistant United States Attorney and Senior Attorney from the Inspector General's office, that there could possibly be areas where there's fraud, where somebody can claim to be having an individual hired at a Indian company subsidiary and bringing them over when that subsidiary really doesn't exist. How do you have to deal with the suspicions on that?
Yeah, Ken, you are 100% right. Sometimes this type of visa is abused. Absolutely. These cases are, of course, very rare, but it does happen. Because the requirement is that a person who worked in subsidiary company in India, you are giving the example of an Indian company, then that person must have worked at least for 1 out of last 3 years. Now, let us say a petition is filed for an employee who barely worked for 9 months, and that company just fabricated those records saying that this person worked with me for 12 months. So, which is a basically false statement. and this is subject to an investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. So, we always caution our clients, we tell them that it is better to wait for a few months instead of falsifying that information, so that you state the facts. And I think most of the companies who care about their reputation and which are really strong financially, they do not play these games. But again, you also talked about another factor, that companies may not exist. What happens is, let us say a company is owned by one person, and this one person comes here on L-1A visa. Now, he says, I have nothing to do back home. I got my L-1 visa and I want to stop my operations in India. So, that way he closes that company. No, that is the lifeline for the US visa. If that back home company closes, basically there is no parent subsidiary relationship, right? And if that relationship ceases, that person basically has got no right to continue on L-1 visa. So, you are right in that respect.
Are there any variations of the L-1 visas which we should know about, and how do these differ?
Yes, there are two types of L-1 visas. One is L-1A and second is L-1B. Now, your second part of the question is, how do they differ? Now, L-1A visa is meant for the managerial or an executive category. Now, top level people, like we give the example of a CFO, CEO, a person is the director of the company, who are performing all senior level functions. They have got the powers to hire other managers. They have got the power to fire other managers. So, hiring and firing powers they have got, and they are basically placed in such a position that they can take some major decisions for the operations of the company. Like they do not have to look back to somebody in India. Oh, I am waiting for my boss's instructions. No, you are the boss. You are supposed to be taking instructions. If we can document that kind of role being performed by that person, that is covered under managerial or executive category, and this is under L-1A. Now, L-1B category is meant for those people who have a specialized knowledge about the product, and these people are coming, this is kind of second tier in the hierarchy of I would say top management of the company. So, those are called L-1B visa holders, which sometimes are large in numbers. But recently I would just like to mention here, L-1B petitions are having a very hard time for approval, because now there are new guidelines. How do you prove that this person has got the specialized knowledge? Because USCIS says, why can't you hire a US citizen or a green card holder who is available here, and that person can do the job with a little bit training of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks? Why he should be stopped? So, there were many rejections of L-1B visas in the recent past.
Has that been in part due to the economy here?
That plays some role. I see that sentiments overall are against outsourcing. Of course, you know, when US workers who are able and willing to work and they cannot find their jobs, they are sitting at home, they cannot pay their bills, and the feeling is why a foreigner should come and take up that job. Yes.
Would you mind sharing a checklist of requirements for these L-1 visas?
Oh, sure, can. You know, checklist, of course, it can go on and go on. There are so many requirements, but I would like to list some of the important ones. Now, once I mentioned already, a person who wants to come over here, now that person must have worked in India at least for a period of 1 year out of the last 3 years. So, it is not necessary and it is not required that person has to work just at one stretch. That period can be cumulative, but 1 year is the prerequisite to qualify for the job. Now, second question is whether what kind of position that person was holding, whether that person was holding a managerial position, executive position, or a sport level position. Accordingly, you will decide what kind of position you want to give in the parent company or subsidiary in the United States, and what kind of education that person is holding. Now, let me tell you one thing. Now, education for the position is not that important, as it is so important in the case of H-1B petition. I have done successfully certain L-1B petitions where the person who came here as a director, he was holding just a high school degree, nothing more than that, because that is not the requirement. Now, second thing is that you have to show that, as from the petitioner point of view, that you have to show that this is a viable business, that this is a bona fide business. It's not like working from somebody's home and unable to document all that kind of stuff.
I see. Is there a limit on the number of L-1 visas like the H-1Bs, or?
Fortunately not. There is no quota system for L-1Bs. So, whosoever qualifies, that person can come on L-1A or L-1B visa, unlike H-1B, which is subject to the quota requirement, and which starts from October 1, goes up to September 30th. I would say it's equivalent of a government fiscal year. So, it's not so in case of L-1 visas.
Very good. Can an L-1 visa holder apply for a green card?
Yes, definitely. Like we talked about, there are two types of L-1 visas, L-1A and L-1B. L-1A visa holder doesn't have to go through the labor certification process, which is a very strenuous process and time consuming process. He can straight away move to the stage of filing immigrant petition. We talked about form I-140, but L-1B person, unless there is an offer of L-1A position and this person, there is a genuine offer, he can move to the L-1A position requirement. Otherwise, they have to start with the labor certification process for L-1B visa holders, which again, is a long queue.
Wow, there's certainly a great deal that has to be grasped in trying to navigate these areas. What advice do you have for any employer who's trying to bring somebody over to assist them?
Sure. Again, it all depends whether you want to bring an employee on L1 status or H1B status, depending upon the situation, whether the person has really worked in the overseas parent or subsidiary or an affiliate company at least for a period of 1 year. But if you want to bring him before he has worked for 1 year, then the option is H1B or maybe O1 visa.
Are those viable?
Oh yes, all these types of options are viable options, yes.
Very good, very good. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on the Capitol Forum and sharing with us the L1 visa and its importance today.
Thank you so much, Ken. I really appreciate for inviting me to your studios, and I enjoyed your questions, and hopefully audience got some benefit out of our question answer session, and thank you very much for being patient with us.
I thank you.